Okay, so now it's finally started online. The attendees. Okay. Hi guys, hope you can hear me. I'm Clint, Microsoft Student Ambassador for HIT. Very sorry for the delay. We've been having some network issues here at it, and we had to resort to other plans. But thank you for everyone who's decided to take part. The question and answer section will be, section will be online. You'll see it as like two chat boxes with a question mark there. You can leave whatever thoughts or comments you have. But as you can probably see on your screens right now, what we have there is Microsoft Learn. Take a good look at it because that's what we're going to be focusing on a lot today, whilst also talking about the basics of the club. So we actually have 5 in-person members here. If you're on HIT's campus, you can come to room N110, since a lot of you are having internet issues as well. And we can try and get started, but let's actually give you guys the basics here. I don't know what the guys in the room manager. I think what we can try and do is, can you try and sit a little closer so that I can show you off of my screen. Here. Okay. Yeah, so I think this is what we'll actually try and do. So everyone who's viewing online, please tell me if you can't hear me. If you can't see what's going on, please tell me, and I'll try and help as much as possible. Let me see here, just make sure everything's okay. What's going on now? Really? Sorry, can you hear me? You can hear me? Yeah, okay, I know. Thanks. Okay, so try and move this closer. Turn up brightness. Okay, can you guys see? Cool. Great. So, for a quick introduction for starters, we already talked a lot about what Microsoft Student Ambassadors is. We're an online community that is endorsed and sponsored by Microsoft. That's built on trying to make students be able to dive into tech, learn a lot more about careers in tech, and hopefully get a lot of tools and opportunities that help them scale up. What does that mean? If you're working in any field of tech, maybe the best comparison I can give is if you work in medicine or the medical industry. Whilst the medical industry, most people probably think doctors, it doesn't just mean doctors. There's nurses, there's specialists for certain things like lab technicians and so on. There's, what is this? Radiologists, etc. Around doctors, again, there's your surgeons, there's your pediatricians, there's your, what are they called? Dermatologists and so on. And there's this huge range of things that if you ask anyone who's going to med school right now, they'll tell you that what they're doing is kind of being taught the basics of each part, and then they'll choose to specialize later, right? Our field is a little different because technically I could have a bachelor's computer science degree, and if I know what I'm doing, if I'm really good at a certain programming language, if I'm really good at a certain tool, I'm fine. I'm usually fine as far as employment is concerned. It's the truth. Or maybe I go out, I do my own thing, I start a startup, become the next Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, whatever. It can happen. But what's happened with our field nowadays is that it's grown so much that it's a little scary for some of them starting from scratch. Right? Some of you guys are telling me you're doing ISA, some of you are doing software engineering, some of you are doing what? From day on, you're told, oh, you can be a web developer, or you can be a mobile developer, or you can be someone doing Java or Python or AI, etc. And what's going to happen very quickly is there's pressure and you can get overwhelmed and you might not know exactly which way to go. I was talking about how they do the curriculum at HIT here, which is you touch the basics of certain things, but you never really go into them. And I've seen this now because I just finished my attachment or internship here. And I got to the place I'm working and I swear I did not know anything. That's the truth. I'm not saying that to make fun of it or how it works, but more of to say, because of that approach of just touching a little bit of everything, I was a master of nothing. And when I went for internship, I had to learn from scratch and I had to learn fast. Imagine you're told, okay, we just need a simple app that does ABC. I don't know how to do ABC, so now I'm rushing on YouTube, seeing a quick tutorial of trying to do that. And if I'm lucky, it works. If I'm not, my job is now hanging in the balance. And that's what we're trying to just help you guys do, which is figure out a lot of ways that you want to go through. This is a huge learning platform. Like there's stuff for everything. I talked a bit about it last week, but basically, if we look at it as the type of, right off the home screen, it tells you to learn things according to certain projects, to certain roles, so job roles. Sorry, please. Hey, I guess, right ahead. Take a seat, please. Learning according to certain job roles, learning according to certain certifications as well. If we look at where it says, let's see, roles here, we start looking at IT administrators, AI engineers, app makers, auditors, business users. And this is just a snapshot of just how many things you can learn. But the good thing is here it's categorized and it's put together. So you focus on what you really want to do or what you're really good at. So if you're the type of person who wants to focus on apps, we can click App Maker here, and we should get something that goes according to that. So, for example, there's Microsoft's Powerapps. This is essentially apps that you can build without code, almost completely. Now, they are simpler, and if you want to get super creative, they might be more limited for you than learning a native language such as your, I don't know, Java or Kotlin for Android or Swift for iOS. But they're a good start, especially if you're working on the business side of things. So let's say you work for a company, you already have a company solution or a company website that you use just for people to use out there. Rather than having to build an app from scratch, Powerapps allows you to take most of that code that's already working for that company website and turn it into a quick Power App within, I don't know, maybe a day tops. So something that's a project that could take a month or more is literally tied down into something similar. So they can be a little limited, but they really have their use cases. Let's see here. So you create analytics reports, popular modules and learning apps for app makers. So some of this is now building chatbots, building an AI model-driven app. Let me look for something to do with Xamarin here. Let me see. Oh, sorry. I think my keyboard is not playing well with Teams. Okay, how am I gonna do this then? Oh, come on, man. Let me see. Okay, there we go. There we go. So we have Xamarin popping up here. Enter. Okay, great. Let me see. Introduction to Xamarin.Android. Exactly. This is a module I've actually taken on myself. And what Xamarin is, it's a cross-platform framework based on the .NET framework or C#. We'll go into what those are a little later. But basically, it's if you learn about C# or if you learn about the .NET framework, that's something that most of you guys are going to do, even in your curriculum at it. C# has been around for a while. It's very, very prominent in making a lot of desktop apps, especially for Windows, from what are called Windows Form apps. So, you know, those applications that you run on Windows that look like they're from Windows 95 or something like that. I can't those things. Those are your Windows Forms apps. They've been existing forever. But it also works for stuff that's a lot newer, like what are called universal Windows platform apps, like this Groove Music. You can see its design and so on is much more modern. It works well with touch, that kind of stuff. That's all because of, what's it called? Sorry. Is it still, yeah, it's still okay. That's all because of C# and the .NET framework. But Microsoft actually figured out how to take that same .NET framework and be able to build apps for Android or iOS based on C#. So that the good thing about that is, if you start off with .NET, you start off with C#, you've been learning it for about a year, you use Visual Studio probably 90% of the time. You can take that and now apply a lot of that knowledge into building mobile apps. You don't have to go and learn Kotlin from scratch. You don't have to go and learn Java and iOS from scratch. And that makes things a lot easier for you. Let's maybe actually take a look into the introduction here. Okay, so just reading off of it, let's see. It's a mobile-first, cloud-first world, and users expect devices of all types to be connected and online to generate data. They want updates on everything from their taxi or flight arrival to the temperature of their home while they're on vacation. Users need their data to be relevant, detailed, and readily available across multiple devices. And work data isn't the only focus. We see smart devices in all aspects of our lives. These devices, more relevantly, the applications running on them need to work elsewhere, across devices, across network types, and across country borders. What they're basically talking about here is, nowadays it's possible. Let me be very direct. It's very possible to build an app for one thing, right? You can build an app for an Android phone, and depending on where you are, here in Zimbabwe, most people use Android. You'll be fine. You'll probably be fine. But in the world we live in, if you really want your app or your service to hit big time, you have to spread it as wide as possible. So probably a good idea to have something for iOS, you have something for Android, you have something that runs on the web, right? So the web can take care of most of your desktop and so on, right? So because of this is where Xamarin comes in, because I actually undersold it. You don't just build iOS and Android apps. You build desktop apps as well. You build web apps as well. So it's basically you learn one thing and are able to spread it across so much with essentially one framework. So let's actually start to, okay, yeah, and here's something awesome that Microsoft Learn does. So first, for every module you take on, it tells you what the module will do. So in this module, you create a Xamarin.Android project, right? Decompose an app into activities, build an activities UI, so user interface, and update your Android SDK. So in case you aren't someone who's already dealing with Android, since this is Xamarin.Android module, it'll tell you how to set that up, how to get it started. And that's one of the most awesome things about Microsoft Learn. I talked to some of you guys in the groups, and I understand that some of you guys were even a little embarrassed because a lot of people came into my DM, even when I was asking the group, are you having trouble with setting up your Microsoft Learn account? And I guess it's, especially for us, we're younger, so it's a little embarrassing to say, I don't know how to set up an account. But the good thing about Learn is once you actually set up the account, it will teach you how to set up a lot of these things. And you know, you can save yourself some of the embarrassment of getting started on some of that stuff. So here's essentially a primer on what is Xamarin Android, right? So Visual Studio Tools for Xamarin is an open source app development platform that lets you build apps for many operating systems. Xamarin allows you to write apps that can take full advantage of the power, features, and performance of each platform with a single shared .NET code base. Xamarin.Android is a Xamarin framework that you can use to create fully native Android apps by using C# in Visual Studio. So as I said, if you've already started using C#, if you're already using Visual Studio, this will be a quick way to get started on that. So what this diagram is basically showing is that this is essentially how it works. Right at the bottom is C# app logic. So basically, the logic you write in C, logic is essentially, let me start here. logic is essentially just how the app works, basically creating the flow of like an app deciding, okay, so this is how I receive data, this is how I process it, this is how I give output. Basic how a computer works stuff. And once that's done, so right at the bottom is the logic. Then there's the shared C# user interface code. So basically, if you were used to making C# apps or user interfaces in this case before, it essentially works the same way. It's now just being sent to a specific platform, and then it gets turned into either a native Android app, a native Windows Phone app, if anyone still uses those, a native iOS app, and it all comes together into one thing. What is the Xamarin.Android app? This is a native Android app that's built by Xamarin tools and libraries. The UI is created from Xamarin wrappers around native Android to use, so the app has the look and feel that users expect. So in other words, if you make a Xamarin app, it's not going to look weird or not work on an Android phone, right? The behavior logic is written in C#, which is comfortable and familiar to the community of .NET developers. So use the Visual Studio and C# to develop for, what's it called? For Android. You can use Visual Studio or Visual Studio for Mac to build Xamarin.Android apps. Xamarin.Android supports the latest C# features, including generics, async wait. This is a little deeper, so we're not going to dive too much into that. But I just wanted to give you guys a look into something that's especially for someone who's into making apps, right? Let's try and check out another role for, let's see here. Analyst, educator, DevOps engineer. Let's just go with, yeah, let's actually go with students, because a lot of you guys are starting from scratch. You probably need a lot of tools that help you to start from scratch. So we're talking about stuff for students now. Let's see. Build tech skills for space exploration. That might be a bit much, so let's maybe start a little simpler. And what it's showing now are essentially what are called learning paths. What we were looking at was a module, but a module is always part of a larger learning path. What a learning path is essentially a course, let's call it that, but it's much smaller than a course you're going to do at school, whilst allowing you to get what you really need for that specific language, that specific tool, that specific device. So, for example, let's see, building tech resilience. This one was actually very, very new. It started with, I think, a keynote that Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella talked about last year, which is the world's become a lot shaken up because of COVID. I mean, we're seeing the effects of it right now, how you guys are starting school and everything. But technology has been one of the few things that's been able to keep going and to keep things together. And that's out of building what you can call resilient tech, right? So building apps that work better even in situations like this, building what's called services that can adapt to situations like this. That's essentially what tech resilience is. But let's maybe try and look at starting tech as an intern. This might be useful when you're in your part 3, but you can actually try and check it out now. Wouldn't hurt. And that's the good thing about everything on Microsoft Learn. You can check all this stuff out at your leisure, okay? If you start a learning path today, you don't have to finish it by the end of the week. You don't have to finish it by the end of the month. Hopefully you finish it by the end of the year, but it's up to you. You take up what you want, you take up each module when you feel you have the time, and hopefully you go and you skill up enough that you can use this stuff to gain professional certifications, which are very, very, very important. And you can start off on your career in the right way. Let's look at something that's very useful for beginners, which is Python, right? So discovered the role of Python in space exploration, maybe a bit much. Let's see here. Principles of sustainable software engineering. This is something great for software engineers or anyone who really wants to develop software in general. Let me see here. Let me get in here, see what others are learning. Right, great. So now I can browse all the learning paths. Let me just scroll up here and let me look into Python a bit. Python is always popular for beginners because it's exactly introduction to Python. Because it's great for getting people to gain a feel of software development in general or how software works. So it's usually one of the most recommended programs for new students. And so let's look a bit into what this course has. This one's about an introduction to Python. I believe, yeah, okay, great, cool. So learn how to write basic Python code, declare variables, and work with console input and output. This is less about building a full app and more about making you understand the fundamentals of computer programming. So what you're going to learn in any programming language, like in any programming language, there's going to be your basic syntax, so how you write the code. There's going to be some version of variables, right? There's going to be some version of probably, what's it called? There's probably going to be some version of probably code that's input and code that's output. And you're probably going to have to deal with things like arrays, you're probably going to have to deal with things like lists, you're probably going to have to deal with things like later on, how you display your output and so on and so forth. So what this does is it gives you the basics on that, and you can use this Python course as a good way to have the basics on that. I think here they actually used to do Python. Now I think they're doing C#. I'm not sure, or C. Wait, sorry. Who's doing software? You are. What are you doing? Which programming language are you doing right now? C, exactly. C is not bad. You can still learn the basic concepts. This is easier. I'm going to be honest with you, this is far easier. And what you learn from Python can easily be applied to the field in a way that C is just a little harder for most people. So I'll give you an example. If you're dealing with C, you're going to deal with a lot of low-level applications or low-level code. That means code that's working right down to basically the motherboard in the processor. So that's why you see a lot of people know C are the guys who make like things like robotics and so on, because they're working with those boards like right at a low level. And if that's what you want, then great, cool. But if you're trying to just, I don't know, build a desktop or mobile or an AI app very quickly, yeah, you might want to leave C and focus on this instead for your basics. And Python is actually still very, very, very popular when it comes to making AI applications, because it just has less lines of code, and it's just a basic rule. The less lines of code you have, the faster your program is likely to run. Why? Because the computer, whilst working very differently from us, is like us. It's usually probably reading code from the top to the bottom. So if it has more to read, it's going to process that slower. So
there's inbuilt functions for the AI operations. Unlike in C, you have to march altogether in sketch.
So stuff to think about. You're looking at things to get into. Let me see. Let me try and go for something else. Let's see, browse all paths. Let me look at. Just try and say web. See what I can find. Let's see. Control as your services, build a web application with mean stack. Okay, that's a bit much. Customized web application with Docker. Let me see if I can find something for .NET. Okay. Introduction web applications, create a web service API, scale an app web service. I'm trying to look at stuff that's very beginner friendly, because I know some of this is going to be okay. Beginner. This is beginner. Wow. Okay. It's scaring me a little. So, like one thing that you're gonna learn, though, exactly, build a web app with Blazor. This is great. There's one thing that you're gonna learn. No one knows everything. Okay, in our field, no one knows everything. Don't get me wrong, someone might be very good at figuring things out quickly or picking up languages quickly, and that's great. But no one knows everything, which is why communities and teams and people coming together is something that should always be encouraged, just out of the simple fact that the truth is most of the time when you're gonna go out into the world, you're gonna work in teams anyway. I've seen this, okay? At the workplace where I was working, it's basically a startup. So what happens in the startup, since you have limited funding and limited resources, I was actually made to build mobile apps for Android on my own. You can imagine, this is the guy who barely knows Android. And now you're being told, build a medical record system app that links to what are these called? To digital instruments in a hospital and captures their values automatically using Bluetooth. I had no idea anything that was being said at all. And I was lucky enough to figure some of that out. But even when I figured it out, here's one thing that I realized. Okay, I know what I'm doing, but there's just not enough time for me to do it all on my own. So recently, thankfully, we got 2 other developers to work with me on the Android side of things. And it was because you're doing front end, you're doing back end, you're making sure all the logic works. In my case, all those instruments and so on, I have to make sure they're working properly. If I have the tiniest error that's honestly annoying, for example, I run the phone, I run the app, I test it on my phone, I test it on the boss's phone, no problem. Someone has a weird ITIL tablet that comes from, I don't know where. And I'm not making fun of ITILs before somebody gets me. No, I'm just trying to say devices are very different. You get it? You run it there, and for whatever reason, a button that's supposed to be at the bottom of the screen is at the top. And that's because I hadn't thought of how tablets work. Like there's a few different UI elements in how you're supposed to stretch things out and make them fit that tablet form factor. So I had to do that, but the problem is I'm also supposed to fix this issue on the back end that's needed by tomorrow because the app won't work if that issue is not made. So you see this whole stretching and solve a parts thing. It can be a nightmare. So always remember that. Don't get me wrong, know your front end, know your back end, know as much as possible and be good at it, but also always be willing to work with other people because no one is invincible and no one can do this stuff on their own. So the more you learn with others, the better. So this is building web apps with Blazor. Blazor is relatively new. It's essentially another framework for developing web apps using mainly .NET. But let's read a bit about it and see how, brother. Learn how to set up your development environment, and build your first web app with Blazor, Visual Studio Code, and C#. So maybe for people who don't really know Microsoft's developer tools and IDEs, there's Visual Studio and there's Visual Studio Code. The 2 are different. Visual Studio is this big kind of jack of all trades, does almost everything IDE. For those who might not know, that means integrated development environment. It's great, but it's very heavy. I know this thing has a 256 gig SSD. I can tell you about 40 gigs of that is Visual Studio. 40 gigs, that's just gone. I can't even, I use an external hard drive all the time because of my development tools. It's just the truth. And it sucks, but it has its uses. Okay, for example, you saw it's what you use when you're making Xamarin apps. It's what you use when you're making desktop apps. It's useful for making a lot of AI stuff. It's the best thing about it and the worst thing about it is that it can do everything. And because it can do everything, its size is good. On the other hand, Visual Studio Code, which I have, where is it? Right here. Let me try and make sure I'm sharing the screen enough to show, because I know most people are only seeing this. So let me try and share something else. Let's see. Okay, there's some stuff on the question. I don't think so. No. Okay. Let me stop sharing this for a second. Please just give me a sec. Let me see here. Screen one. Okay. Yeah. If I just go screen one. So now I'm sharing my whole screen. You guys should be able to see everything I have. If you're having any issues, please just tell me. But yeah, it seems to be showing. Okay, so this is Visual Studio Code. It's a lot lighter. It's essentially what many would call in early days a text editor. So everyone comes with a text editor. I mean, every Windows PC comes with a text editor in what's called Notepad. Technically, if you want, if you're developing a website, you can do it in Notepad, technically. It's not the best thing to do it with, but you can. You can take all of that HTML code, write it in Notepad, and actually run it, and you see your website's running. But if you want something that's built for developers and is actually really, really good, this is what you should be looking at. Visual Studio Code is amazing. You can also try out things like Sublime Text, but what this does is give you what's technically at its most basic, a text editor, but it also comes with a lot of tools and specific customizations that make it great for devs. So what am I talking about? I can be checking out multiple projects at once just because of the tabbed view. I can be searching through the stuff I have, or searching through one of the best things about it, which is extensions. So despite the fact that it technically comes as a very bare bones text editor, you can add plugins and little extensions and so on to it that basically can end up turning it into a sort of IDE like the main Visual Studio as well. But now you can customize this according to almost anything you want, not just stuff that's made in Visual Studio. So, for example, when I was doing C in part one, I installed the C and C++ plugin, which essentially allowed me to run a lot of this code a little easier. Code runner, this is if you have C and instead of having to run some of this, because if you're doing C projects, I don't know, have you guys done any practical stuff yet? No, okay. What you're gonna see is if you're doing practical stuff, you'll have to write the code in your text editor. Then afterwards, you have to open something like command prompt to run it, which is annoying. So because of this plugin, again, I can just run it in Visual Studio. Done. I have Dart for when I was trying out Flutter for a bit, which is another framework for mobile development, but I left that. And it's sort of, so what it is sort of this thing that starts out blank, but then the more you want, the more you can scale it and do whatever you want. Let's go back into our browser, please. Okay, so back to this. So, looking at the introduction here, what does it say? Blazor lets C# developers use their skills to build web apps with C# and Microsoft.NET. Simple, right? Imagine you're building a client-side web app and already have a team of .NET developers. Also, imagine how to deploy your app as a progressive web application, which users can learn and can then download and use offline. So progressive web apps are this really new thing that's been very popular as of late. I'm going to tell you this. Some of the applications that you use on your phones and your PCs right now, they're not really applications, or at least what we used to call applications, which was something that runs natively within the device and is made using a language that's specific to that device. So the Java, Kotlin stuff I've talked about before. Progressive web apps is essentially sort of a web application, or technically a website, right? That's very responsive and that's capable of running at least some of the stuff offline. Meaning that a person can just essentially download that website and run it offline without ever actually knowing that what they're running is a website. So Blazor allows you to do that. Blazor developers can build the front end and the back end logic as well. So that's something that's also very important for web development, front end and back end development. We'll go into that later. With common languages, frameworks, and tools. Using the same language for front end and back end code can accelerate the app development, reduce the complexity of the build pipeline, simplify maintenance, and let developers understand and work on both client-side and server-side code. Right, what you're supposed to do here is configure your local environment for Blazor, create a new Blazor project, add a component to the Blazor page, update the logic, and learn event handling and data binding in Blazor component. Use routing in a Blazor app. Now, again, we're not gonna go into everything, but what I really wanted you to see is, so this is a lot of what comes with learning, right? Almost everything you want to learn here, you probably can. Just to give you an example, I don't know why my keyboard is doing this. Let me search here. Java. Right off top of my head. Build a Java app with Cloud Scale, NoSQL, Cosmos DB, Java on Microsoft Azure, introduction to Java on Azure, develop a Java web app, etc. So something that you might not think is specifically close to a lot of Microsoft products and stuff, because nowadays Java is often associated with Android. You can still do a lot of Java-based stuff here. What else can I think of? What else can I think of? Maybe if I actually just write Mac, not sure what's gonna happen if I say Mac. Maybe I'll find nothing, maybe I'll find something. Let's see. Explore development options for Microsoft Edge, learn output from digital, deploy and configure Microsoft Edge. Okay, so maybe not something that's directly let's see here. So something like a Rust environment that's meant to run on both Windows and Mac. So essentially what I'm trying to show you is, chances are if you want to learn something, Microsoft Learn does have it in some capacity, and definitely stuff that's great for beginners and great for someone who's starting on. You might later see that some of these things you might want to learn further or learn from other sources later on, which is fine. No book has all the answers. I'll tell you this now. So in the same way that sometimes when you study, you might have to refer to one other textbook just to get one more little bit of knowledge. Same thing here, but 90% of what you want is probably here. Let's go into something that's a little more fun, certifications. So let's go into the overview so you understand. So as we talked about, maybe some of you might know this, maybe some of you might not. Having a certification in any tech field nowadays is incredibly important. Sometimes just as important as having a degree. You could literally not have a degree and have a certification and still get the same job someone with a degree does. It's just the truth. And because of that, Microsoft Learn actually gives you certifications based on a lot of the stuff that they already offer. So let's say you've been learning C#, you've learned how to make Windows Forms app. They have a certification for that. Let's say you've learned how to make Blazor web apps or Xamarin Android apps. They have a certification for that. And what's great about all of that is, whilst you can have certificates that are generally from Microsoft Learn that show that you've qualified to this level, but you can also have professional ones, which, yes, in the industry are paid for. You have to pay for an examination to get certified, and then after you're certified, you get your professional certificate. But a lot of these actually do tend to end up being free if you use Learn a lot. So for example, you might be using, you might be learning something based on Python, and maybe start with the basics, and then you go into Python for AI apps or making anything to do with AI. And what Learn will probably do, because in case you guys haven't noticed, Right now, I actually signed in on my Microsoft Learn account, right? It will track your account's progress, and then you might receive an email that says, hey, we noticed you're working towards getting some kind of AI certification in Python. If you finish the learning path that you're doing right now in maybe the next 3 weeks, we'll give you a free certification voucher. That means you go, you take on, what's it called, the exam. If you pass it, Microsoft pays for it, and that's it. Literally, that's it, you're done. And sometimes when they're having certain events, usually developer conferences or something, so things like Microsoft Ignite, things like Microsoft Build, we'll talk more about those in the group. You can literally, half the time, they literally have some kind of certification promotion along the lines of in the first week of Microsoft Build or in the first week of Microsoft Ignite, if you're about to get a certification exam or something, enter this code, we'll cover it again. So always keep an eye out for that. Last time they had, what was it? I believe it was Microsoft Inspire. I actually sent like messages to the WhatsApp group. It was before you guys had started, but basically saying, if you guys want to jump onto this, you should right now, because then they were offering certification for almost anything as long as Microsoft can cover that certification. So you could be learning AI, you could be learning, I don't know, Java, you could be learning something to do with mobile development, something to do with desktop development, something to do with IT database stuff. And literally, if you read, I think a course that took 4 hours to read, if you just read a specific course that was saying, just read this basics on cloud computing course, which took about 4 hours in total. So you could probably do it in a week, right? Read it like an hour a day. And literally, they would have covered any certification you wanted. So this is one of the biggest reasons to use Learn. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not restricting where you learn or how you learn. You might find a certain person on YouTube who gives really good tutorials. That's fine. I'm not going to stop someone from doing that. But what you'll notice is there's always benefits to coming back here. So always keep an eye out for that. And also, if you prefer to learn in video, all of the learning paths that we're checking out, by the way, it's always a mixture of text, it's always a mixture of video. Some of these ones, they actually give you an online IDE. So what I mean is, if you're learning something like the basics on C# course, rather than having to download, what's it called? Download Visual Studio from scratch. They actually allow you to write some basic C# code online and test it in a cloud IDE for a while before you have to install any of that stuff. So if you find it's too hard, you can decide not to go, all the way and investing your time, your computer, and everything else. This is Learn TV. I'm not going to play it because of my data, to be honest, but it's essentially also, again, video tutorials that can help you out with that. So let's see here. And then let me actually go into my profile for a minute. So this is my profile. Sorry, I haven't put any pictures. But what it has here is you've got badges. You get a badge after you finish any module or any learning path, right? So I have 18 badges. I have 1 trophy. That's when you like cover a whole subsection of something. So a lot of stuff for Python, a lot of stuff for Azure. A lot of my stuff was for Azure. And it even shows you your progress towards reaching certain things. So for example, building a web app with Blazor thing that we had looked at for 2 seconds. What we had looked at had already given us 19% completion. So now that obviously gives me a little incentive to be like, well, I might as well just go back and finish it. And once you start that, you just keep scaling up and gaining and gaining. It's kind of like leveling up in a video game, and except this time, these are actual real skills I give you. There's achievements, the badges I was talking about here, things I've completed, and so on. And a lot of this stuff you can go and share on your Twitter, you can go and share on your social media, you can go and share in ways that can help build an online profile for you. Because, look guys, in the field you're working in, one thing you shouldn't do is limit yourself from being employed in this. It's very, very likely that you can be employed outside the country. Whether remotely, especially that's common nowadays because remote working has become very, very popular because of the pandemic, or you move out of the country. I know people, student ambassadors has only been around for a year, fine, but there's a guy who was a student ambassador at UZ, sorry, who now apparently works remotely for Microsoft. Like he joined last year when it began, and apparently somehow that worked out for him. I know a guy who was in DSC who now works for Trivago. That's the guy who got me into DSC. I know a guy who was in DSC again, who now works for Google Canada. You might have heard about that. I personally gained a lot of what's it called opportunities just for being involved in communities like this one and previously DSC. So there's huge chances, and what you should always do is try and post a lot of your, not post, but because I'm not trying to sponsor social media addiction here, but share a lot of these achievements online, because it actually helps when some of these companies are looking at you. You'll often find they might be like, share a LinkedIn profile, share your Stack Overflow profile, share your GitHub, and yeah, maybe share your Twitter. So if you're someone who spends all your time fighting people on Twitter, you might want to pull that back just a little bit and instead focus more on this, because they really do try and look at, especially if they can't interview you in person, they'll try and look as much as possible at how you act online and use that as a barometer for like judging things and looking at things. So that's the larger part of it. One last thing that I'm gonna look at before we close off is I really want to look at the Imagine Cup, because that's a huge thing, and can I find it online? I know there's very limited. Okay, fine. I'll just search for it online. Say sorry. Come on, man. Here we go. Okay, so this is something that I want a lot of us to focus on as a club this year. It's called the Microsoft Imagine Cup. It's essentially a huge international competition where, oh, come on, man. Students around the world, whether they're student ambassadors or student ambassador communities or not, though it's often better if you are in a student ambassador community. But yeah, students from around the world basically build apps, devices, projects of any sort, and they basically compete in a huge competition that can have anything from, let me see here, why you should enter Imagine Cup as full of, okay, so it's full of opportunities to gain new skills, access exclusive training, unlock mentorship opportunities, to have the chance to win great prizes, make a difference in the world. You could win, how much are they? I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest, I was going to lead with a cash prize. Last year's cash prize was 75,000 US dollars. Not a joke right there. For, I think, that's if you got first place. They actually give prizes for, I think, a few more than just first place. Because I know a friend of mine, his name was Josh from Kenya. His team wasn't even first prize. They weren't even, I think they were top 20, but they got around $3,000 for that. Top 20. Previous winners got, let's go to learn more here. Previous winners got $135,000 cash prize, mentorship from Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, and along with, of course, if you've gotten that much coverage already, if your app is that good, you're opening yourselves to investors, to turning what's essentially a school project into a whole business. All right, whether it ends up getting bought for a few $100,000 or a few $1 million, I don't know, that's up to you. But it's essentially the type of thing that can turn you from a student starting out into actually growing into a big time and having a huge business. So I'm not going to lie, last year things were a little crazy and we were trying to just put it all together. So we didn't really manage to put anything together for this. But this year we have to. I mean, just for competing, at least for starters. Because it's huge and it gives you guys a lot of exposure in terms of being noticed out there. Besides that, if your name even just comes up on this, or your picture comes up on this website, wouldn't you want to be there? So I really, really want it to be something that, this is my last year, I want it to be something that I leave behind for you guys. I want it to be something that pushes you guys even just in your general career paths in tech. I was lucky enough to have competed in an entrepreneurship competition even before I got to it when I was 19. It's a lot of what sets me towards where I work in now. I work in tech, but I often work in the medical field. And that's because I have that previous experience. Nowadays, the problem is I'm using my phone to tether, but I can try and show you afterwards. Nowadays, well, let me try and just open it anyway. I can't run it in an emulator, but I can show it to you on Android Studio. I'm making fitness apps for fitness watches. That's literally what I'm doing. It's been awesome, but I only got on that path because I took part in that entrepreneurship challenge almost 4 years ago. So the Imagine Cup could be huge. You could all have a whole lot more money in a few months. It's the truth. But even if you don't, you could change your lives for the better, or at least boost your careers for the better for a very, very long time. So this is what I'm doing now. It's called My Help Zimbabwe. Let me try and zoom it in because I know it's not. Let me just go to design view here. This is part of it. Oh yeah, touch doesn't work so well with Android Studio. So you can try and drag this. Come on, man. This is what I didn't want. Okay, yeah, sort of working. And this is what I do. Based off of this watch, these are cheap, go for less than $10, sold in China. You can pay like $100 on Alibaba, get like 20 of them, right? Alibaba, AliExpress, whatever you call it. And whoa, this is what I did not want. You start changing things if you just move something the wrong way. But yeah, it measures your steps. You can take your BP here. You can take your blood oxygen, which has become very important, especially in the time we're in with Corona and everything. And this is something I started building over my attachment. So jump into project. One thing I've learned about development is get into projects, okay, get into making something. You can sit in class for days and learn the theory of something, A to Z, know it top to bottom. That's easy, or at least it's very easy to get into that because we grew up, especially here in Zim, we grew up, you read in class. Usually if you read in class, you know everything that's going on. You can go 4 years passing all the theory exams in head and still be kind of terrible when you finally hit the market, is the truth. Jump into projects, get into making something, try. Look, you're gonna fail a few times, is the truth. I'm a developer. 90% of the times I'm trying to fix my own mistakes so that the app runs properly. And I'm not the best developer, so maybe for you it won't be 90%, maybe it'll be 10%, that'll be great. But that's what I'm trying to say. Get out there and start learning. And trust me, once you do, it's going to be very hard to stop and you won't want to stop. Because once you know I can do something, or I can at least do a bit of this, it helps you to get started on doing everything else. So that's why I want us to do the Imagine Cup this year. And I really, really hope that we come up with something amazing. I've got a few ideas, but we're a team, and I'll be looking forward to hearing ideas from all of you. Even if you think it's crazy, okay, you'd be surprised. Some of the things that win these competitions are some of the simplest things, like the simplest things. I know someone who won something similar from DSE called the Solution Challenge. I know someone who won a DSE Solution Challenge for making an alarm app. Now, it was a little more advanced than that. It wasn't just an alarm. It was like, apparently, it's like okay, there's what's called a rape whistle for women, where if someone is trying to attack them and they play that specific whistle, if anyone is around, they would know that that whistle means a woman is being attacked, right? So they made something similar, but as an app. That was all. Like, if you were to get attacked and you press a specific button, and what it's gonna do is your closest friends and anyone in like, I think a few kilometers radius who has that app is going to receive an alert and your location saying, oh, this person is here, please try and help them out. It's not the most advanced thing in the world. It's actually quite easy when you look at how it works. But think that it made people be able to win the Solution Challenge. So really just look at what's around you. Look at problems. Look at problems here at it, or problems you're having in your life. If you have to commute from school every day, is there nothing that can be done for that? Those kind of things. Zoom has a what's called transport issue ever since Zoom course became the main mode of transportation. Could some more legitimate version of hitchhiking through an app not be made? Those kinds of things. So just think about that and let your mind run wild, and we can talk about it and go through it as the semester goes. But yeah, that's the larger part of it. Thank you so much for coming. I think from now on, I'm just always going to bring a HDMI cable so you can use the projector. B, always bring data in a hotspot so that next time I'll just hotspot people, because I know it's always better when the stuff is able to be shared and seen and you're not seeing it on a small computer screen like this. But thank you so much for everyone who came. Thank you for everyone who joined us online. Let me actually check because I believe the question and answer session hasn't brought up anything, but if you have any questions, please put them in the question and answer section. We'll talk about them right now and just, have some time to actually get to know what you guys need, how best we can help you, everything of that sort. Let me just share the Microsoft Learn screen maybe. No. Okay. Try and go back here. Try again. Still nothing. Okay, fine. It's just showing my screen. Let me open up banner in the photos, or open up some videos to play in the background. Maybe you guys actually didn't see this because I'm realizing a lot of people didn't. We made a joint video with DSE. That was basically a virtual orientation for you guys. Let me see if I can load that up in the background whilst people get some questions ready. Come on, give me something. Share content, please. Include computer sound. Yes, please include computer sound. Okay, I'll just leave this playing in the background and we can see how we'll go from there. Oh, and of course you guys, you're gonna have to ask questions as well. Ambassador for Harare Institute of Technology.
And well, we're excited to tell you about our student
sound, which are endorsed by two of the most amazing companies in the world and are here to give you exposure, tools, and amazing life-changing opportunities.
Hello everyone, it's Tanashi again, and I'm here to tell you more about Global Student Developer Clubs, in short DSC. But before I do so, please sit back and watch this short clip from Google.
Developer student clubs are university-based communities where students learn about Google technology and use their skills to solve local problems. There are over 700 clubs all over the world. From North America to Europe, Africa, and across Asia, we encourage more students to join or start a developer student club at their university.
Some students have overcome personal barriers with the help of their DSC community on their journey to become developers. These clubs help student developers learn through hands-on workshops. They then identify challenges faced by local businesses, NGOs, and sometimes even their own universities and build real solutions for real problems.
The workshops that we had was Firebase, Actions on Google, and we're about to do ML. It's an amazing experience to learn about the impact of the technologies that they provide in our local communities.
DSC is a family, and it's not just about the programming, it's about the learning of teamwork and leadership. A lot of villages face the problem of water, farming, floods. Maybe we can develop applications to solve this problem. Might be very ambitious for us as students to say that, but nothing is impossible. We can do it.
Developer student clubs around the world have already impacted so many students in their universities and people in their community. The future is bright for the next generation of students.
There you have it, a brief description of DSC from Google's perspective. The first DSC club launched in 2017 in India, and today there are more than 1,200 universities in more than 105 countries with the club, which means that you'll be part of a global network of developers. But hold on, that's a lot of global developer communities, right? And you must be wondering, how does HIT fit into this very huge picture? Well, the answer simply put in one word is community. Google Developer Student Clubs are student-run university-based community groups. They're open to all undergraduate and graduate students who are in.
And then we jump over into. Oh yeah, that's me, by the way. Let's try and jump into this slightly.
Microsoft Student Ambassadors. We're part of an international community of student developers and tech enthusiasts, endorsed by Microsoft, focused on learning new skills, exposing students to new opportunities, and helping build careers in and around the tech industry. Chances are you already know what Microsoft's developer ecosystem might be about, and you're likely thinking Windows and PCs. And that's true. But in this developer community, you'll learn that being part of Microsoft developer ecosystems means using Microsoft's technologies to interact with everything in tech. Be it gaming with Xbox and game streaming, mobile devices with Xamarin apps, web apps and websites with .NET, cloud storage and computing platforms that power everything from AI bots to voice assistants to self-driving cars. Simply put, there's basically no language, framework, or platform that this developer community says no to. In Microsoft's aim to meet people where they are and allow them to do more, this community aims to meet developers where they are too, and do the same. We've been operating for about a year now, having virtual and in-person events including developer tutorials, career talks with people in the tech industry, and community mixer events like gaming and movie nights. This year, however, we'd like to do even more and increase the scope of those activities, including more community outreach events, tackling more AI and cloud projects, and of course, taking on the amazing Microsoft Imagine Cup, an international competition where students come up with awesome projects and business ideas, with the winners gaining funding, exposure, and mentorship from top tech executives, including even Microsoft CEO from time to time. Our tutorials and technical activities are done through Microsoft Learn, a free, robust, and powerful learning platform, with tutorials, demos, and all the documentation you need to, well, learn everything you need about a language, tool, or skill in the best way possible. The best part of it is that it offers exams and even professional certifications, which you can get vouchers for depending on the learning path that you took. adding a myriad of professional paths and career options that you can improve through it. And trust me, you want to check it out as soon as we're done telling you about it. And there's a lot more to it too. We already talked about mixers and times where we have fun, and trust me, we do have fun. But there's purpose in this, we promise. Microsoft Student Ambassadors aims to be a force for good. And amongst helping you guys reach your best, we definitely want you guys to go out there and do your best for the world around you as well. So yeah, as we said, more community projects and everything else coming up. Be ready for that. Personally, I can't wait for you to become a part of this amazing community, to expose yourself to both the local and international tech industry, and to meet people to start with or collaborate on amazing projects with. To go out there and, well, as I said, be a force for good, gaining life-changing opportunities and experiences that you'll never forget. Sound good? Great. Sign up already. Trust me, you'll enjoy every minute of it.
There you have it. Hope you love what you've heard.
That's the larger part of it. I don't know. Okay, so I don't think I got anything in the question and answer session. No one seems to have sent any messages. So I think I'll ask from here, from you guys. Anyone who has questions? I was already asking me how to set up accounts and everything. I think. Anyone else with any questions? I can tell you now, we can see how we go from here. Anyway. None.
When you show questions.
What?
Questions there.
Yeah.
You said you write exactly
When you want.
when you want.
It doesn't tell you like there's an exam, and since you started the course today, there's an exam. It's no. You write exams when you're ready, you write certification exams whenever you want. That's all.
So how do you write them?
Online, virtually. Trust me, there's anti-cheating measures like the plugins and stuff that make sure like you're not opening other tabs, messing around or anything. But yeah, and look, man, here's the thing: what you learn here is what you're going to do in the exam. Like honestly speaking, Microsoft Learn doesn't throw some weird stuff at you that you're not ready for. What you literally learn, like almost. A lot of the questions are multiple choices, then some of them are code. The answers are multiple choices. It will literally be a line that you did exactly as it was. So you don't have to be scared that it's going to be, I don't know. It's not SimSync. Let me put it that way, because yeah, SimSync was something else. Even I still remember it. But yeah, that's the larger part of it. Anything else?
So basically, where do you get them?
Microsoft.
Yeah.
They're the ones who give you the certificate. It's a certification. What happens is it can load up as something that's technically virtual, or you can print it if you want. You really need to print it. But 90% of the time, if someone is like, give us proof of certification, you can send them that, and there's usually a code on the certificate that can be traced to make sure it's a legitimate one. You get it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Anything? Anyone else? Anything from you? Nothing at all.
If it's a fake certificate, they might mail it to you.
Exactly. That's another thing. All right.
Questions such. Is this club going to go like beginner by beginner, like I don't know.
Beginner, yeah. Like everything. Look, guys, if you've never, I think I know we didn't go into a lot of the actual code part of it, right? But there's literally introduction to programming courses. Like what is programming, right? What is computer programming? What are variables, as I said? What is the syntax of a programming language? So if all you know how to do on your computer is turn it on and turn on YouTube, it's fine. We can start from there. Like this club is not just for experts. At the same time, it's not just for beginners. There'll be a wide range of events, and there'll be a wide range of ways we can mix together. And some stuff you might see like, okay, I'm not really jumping in on next week's thing because next week's thing is about AI and I'm still trying to learn basic Python or basic C#. That's fine. Please know, events are not mandatory. You know, I'm not going to come and chase you next week being like I didn't see you last week. No, it's just like everyone wasn't able to make it today. I totally understand. Even some people, I mean, you guys have the idea of, okay, let's just go to the room. Some people are on campus and they try to connect online and they saw that they couldn't. I totally get that, right? It's fine. But as far as skill level is concerned, feel free, okay? I always leave my DMs open. If you have something that you're afraid to ask in the group, come and ask me. If you have something you want to ask in the group, ask me. Okay, or ask any of your community members. I'm sorry, I actually haven't introduced some people. That's Lionel. He's under the community member. I really put the C/Father. You can ask those guys. There's more guys. There's their numbers. I put them in the group, but I'll send the text again, so you know. Like you don't have to just ask me. I'm working these days, so I tend to be like busier. I know there was someone who actually sent me a message, I think 2 days ago. And I don't know if they felt embarrassed or something, but they sent the message and they deleted it. And I actually went, I was like, hi, if you have a question about student ambassadors, it's okay, you can still ask me. And again, it was one of those things, they don't know what Microsoft Teams is. And I had to explain it, but I'm not going to laugh at you, right? Because it's not stuff we knew. A lot of us came from very, very different schools, right? And with the way that Zoom is now, especially with the pandemic and so on, if you did your lower six or your upper six last year, things are very, very different and things are very, very weird. There's all these tools that you're being told to be good at knowing. And you know how our parents treat us. Computers, I know this stuff. But no, some of this stuff is hard. Okay, one of the most Googled things, if is literally how to turn off my computer. If people cannot figure out how to turn off their computer, you think I'm lying, fine. You think I'm lying, let's actually just go on right now and try and actually like, let me go on Google because if I search it on Firefox, you might think I'm joking. Let's see, sorry. I hope it doesn't bring up an inappropriate answer because Google can do this sometimes. Let me see how to turn off. Let me see how to turn off what comes up. Please give me a suggestion. Come on. Internet is slow, so I guess it's slowing this down. But literally, how to turn off a computer always comes up, and it's crazy. It's the funniest thing. So no one's here to judge. Okay, no one's here to say I know more, you don't know anything, etc., etc. I didn't know much when I started this stuff. I knew a bit of web development, that was it. Android, yeah, I didn't know it. Some of this desktop stuff that I talk about now, I still don't truly know it. I'm learning, but yeah, and that's how it is. We learn as we go. I know some of you guys even got intimidated because I saw on YouTube those guys were talking about Java from day one, and that's like you're like, okay, hey man, don't feel intimidated. Talk about it. Like, let's say last year was part one, he knows a little bit more now, I hope, but he's a community member. So we're not here to judge anyone or to say, you can do this and you can't. So feel free. As for events this semester, I'll try and have one next week. If we can't, DSE might be having it on the Saturday. It's fine. We're working together, so it's okay. If not, I know that if things work out, maybe some of us are supposed to be either coming to school or coming to live in the general government area. I think next week, like the week in the 11th, that's when our registration is. We'll have a gaming night. That's just fun. That's literally just come. People can play games, FIFA, Mortal Kombat, whatever you want, Call of Duty. You literally just sit around the room and have fun. But we love events like that because, especially for you guys, it's probably worse. You guys are having the weirdest part of our network where like people are, all lessons are virtual, you barely see the people you're learning with. We want events where, as long as you're vaccinated, of course, or it's done safely, where you can still get to meet some of your peers, you can still get to meet some of your fellow club members. So yeah, after that, we'll look into a proper beginner level introduction into C# from zero, okay? So you can feel good about that one. And we'll see how we go from there. Whether we go from C# and go into Windows Forms applications, or we go into, sorry?
I think you're getting it. Some people are complaining about sound.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let me actually do that. So now you want to use the question and answer section? What's wrong with you guys? Okay, so yeah, the point is we'll have some new events coming in the next coming month. You guys are only here for what, a month anyway. So yeah, we'll put everything together. Hope you guys have a good time of it, really, and look forward to seeing you in the coming weeks. Please speak up in the group after this, just a little bit. And yeah, that's about it. Let's end this. And done.